Now with 2025 in the rearview mirror, it's time to look ahead. Look ahead to the new year that is 2026. 2025 was already stacked, so maybe we take it a little easier in 2026. Maybe we don't go too crazy.
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
That's right, you thought 2025 was crazy? We ain't seen nothing yet. 2026 is gonna bankrupt all of us because so much is coming out. So much, I couldn't keep this as a top 10. But I couldn't even keep this as a top 15. I tried my best to narrow it down to 20, but even that was too hard. So I was gonna do a whopping top 25 games, but I realized that was a bit excessive. So I kept it at 20, but I didn't really want to exclude the other 5 games. So with that being said, number 25 is going to be Fable, number 24 is going to be Replaced, number 23 was going to be Crimson Desert, number 22 is going to be Pragmata, and number 21 was going to be 2XKO. Or it wasn't actually going to be 21, it was going to be higher, but I thought to cut it because, the beta is out and a lot of people got to play the beta, so people technically already got to play the game. Now for the usual ground rules, the game has to have a 100% confirmed release window of 2026. Even if it doesn't have a hard date, as long as it is slated for 2026 in any official capacity, it is allowed on this list. There are certain games that don't have an official window for 2026 that will still probably come out this year, but they're not eligible because it needs to be 100% confirmed for 2026. And also, no remasters or collections or anything like that. Remakes are allowed though, but I'm being very strict on that. And lastly, and most importantly, this is my opinion. These are all games I'm excited for. Anyways, let's get into this. Hi guys, MiiKcast here, countdown. My top 20 most anticipated games of 2026. Now before we get started, you know what to do. You should like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell, leave a comment, or I'll flood your house. Wait, what's going on? GTA 6? Number 0? Well, here's the thing. Grand Theft Auto 6 is officially slated for 2026, so it is eligible for this list. However, there's a very solid chance it gets delayed. So half the reason I'm putting it at number 0 is so I don't look dumb for having this game at number 1 if it gets delayed. But the other thing is, it's fucking GTA 6. It almost feels like cheating to have this game even on the list at all. 2026 is shaping up to be a non-stop packed year for games, and putting something like Grand Theft Auto 6 at number 1 would be very predictable. It is my most anticipated game of the year, yes, absolutely, but kinda by default, when Grand Theft Auto 6 releases, I'm telling you, the release of this game will be unlike anything we have ever seen, even if it's somehow gonna be bad, which I highly doubt. So it's number 0. Let's make the list more interesting. Either way, understatement of the century to say that I'm excited for Grand Theft Auto 6, as it releases for PS5 and Xbox Series on November 19th, 2026. And I always revise the list halfway through the year, and here's my deal. If we get to that point and GTA 6 has not been delayed, well, anything short of a new Smash Bros. Game for me would stop it from being number 1 instead of number 0. Well, it feels like for the past number of years, most of the action genre was mainly Souls-likes. Nothing against them, but most people miss the pure action game, something that Phantom Blade Zero is looking to remedy. Sure, we are getting a lot of samurai games on PS5, or have, I guess. We have a lot of those. But this one seems really sick, with just crazy high-octane action all throughout. It seems like it's a traditional action game as opposed to a Souls-like, which a lot of people thought it was gonna be. Phantom Blade Zero is looking like it has some Souls-like elements, but honestly, I think it's for the best that it's not a Souls-like so it doesn't blend with the crowd. But either way, Phantom Blade Zero just looks like a lot of fun. It seems like we are really coming back to an era of pure action games. I don't have much to say really, but I'm excited for Phantom Blade Zero as it releases for PS5 and PC on September 9th. Quite far out, huh?
The mouse Pokemon, a normal type.
Remedy. They make games that are truly unlike any other, aside from FBC Firebreak, which we don't talk about. I fucking loved Alan Wake 2 when it released, but their previous game, Control, I wasn't a big fan of, although I never really gave it a fair chance, so I'm actually currently playing through it, and I'm liking it a lot more than I did the first time around. But regardless of whether or not I like Control, all it takes is a game as good as Alan Wake 2 to get me excited for their next game, Control Resonant. I'm sure this game can move up my list the more I play the first game, but I'm still excited. For no other reason, I have a lot of faith in Remedy after just how fucking good Alan Wake 2 was. But as far as the game itself, the story sees you play as not Jessie from the first game, but her brother Dylan, as he's searching for her. Interesting flipping of the script, and I also already like Dylan because his name is Dylan. If you know, you know. The gameplay, at least the little glimpses of it that we got, also looks really cool. And I'm just excited to play Control Resonant as it releases for PS5, Xbox Series, PC, and Mac? Huh. Sometime in 2026.
I want you to meet me at this address in an hour and we'll slap 5 there. Then afterwards we'll hit the bars.
That sounds good to me. I'm 18 and I'm ready to do some living. We are gonna raise more hell than Hellraiser.
I think Square Enix really nails their HD 2D games, which is why the only one I've really played was Live Alive, but that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, they have a lot of games like this, ranging from original IPs to remakes, but the most unique one seems to be their new one called Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales. This game immediately sets itself apart from other HD 2D Square Enix JRPGs in that it's an action RPG. Not turn-based, you go around these open areas and just attack enemies on the spot. Very interesting and different for a game like this. I understand there has been discourse surrounding turn-based games, and a lot of people don't like how it's all action now, but I think Adventures of Elliot has the potential to prove that there is room for both. There's a demo out for this game on the Switch 2 eShop, and I did actually get to play the demo myself, and I really enjoy it. Although, full transparency, I'm not quite in love with it. But I'm still willing to see for myself as The Adventures of Elliot, The Millennium Tales launches for Switch 2, PS5, Xbox Series, and PC sometime this year. Nintendo's got the most mystery surrounding their 2026. They got a number of games coming out, but as far as the Switch 2, there isn't really much I'm looking forward to that we know of that would also qualify for this list. Not that I'm too worried about that, since Nintendo will usually announce their games pretty close to their release, so I'm sure their biggest titles this year we don't even know about. I mean, they do have Duskbloods, which is definitely exciting, but it doesn't make my list. But one big Switch 2 game I'm looking forward to that, you know, is making my list is Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. Now, to be fair, it is rather low because we haven't seen too much of it. From what we've seen, it is typical Fire Emblem, but it seems to be very similar to Three Houses, possibly even taking place within the same world. Fire Emblem is a series I've always liked, but also kind of been a little hit or miss for me. I fucking love Awakening. Never played Fates. Three Houses was great, Engage was quite forgettable and sort of goofy. Fortune's Weave may be make or break for me when it comes to the Fire Emblem franchise. Either way, I'm looking forward to Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave as it releases for Nintendo Switch 2 sometime in 2026.
Introducing TurboGrafx 16, the next generation video game system.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is such a banger of a movie, a must-watch I'll even say, especially if you're a gamer. Even so, it has its own video game, and it's awesome. So awesome that when it got delisted because of licensing and all that, it created enough of an outroar for Ubisoft to eventually re-release it. Which maybe doesn't sound too crazy, but I don't think that happens as often as you may think. So with all that history, it is very exciting that we are getting another Scott Pilgrim game this year with Scott Pilgrim EX. This just looks awesome. A lot of love is thrown all throughout, and just looks like a joy. Even with many talents from the Scott Pilgrim franchise being a part of this game. It's not higher because I feel like a game like this is typically less exciting than others, even if it ends up being better. But also, and the main reason, while the first game was based off of the movie, EX is based off of the show, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, which I watched a few episodes of and never finished. So that does lose points for me, but at the same time, I don't think it'll matter too much. I'm excited for Scott Pilgrim EX as it is set to release sometime in 2026 for PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC.
Number 15, Burger King foot lettuce. The last thing you'd want in your Burger King burger is someone's foot fungus, but as it turns out, that might be what you get.
The term auteur gets thrown around a lot when referring to mainly filmmakers, not so much game directors or, game designers. If you were to ask me to name some guys who I would consider a gaming auteur, maybe not at the top of the list, but one guy I would name is Suda51. Him and his developer Grasshopper Games are probably best known for No More Heroes, Lollipop Chainsaw, Killer 7, and Shadows of the Damned. But they got a new game coming out real soon called Romeo is a Dead Man. This seems to have all the action and wild shit that you come to expect from Suda51. It's an ultra-violent sci-fi and just looks like a ton of fun with the Grasshopper Games flair, Plus, you play as Romeo. That's his name, but not just any Romeo. This is a bizarre and weird-ass take on Romeo and Juliet. This type of take on the Shakespearean classic seems to be something only Suda51 can come up with. I'm hyped for Romeo is a Dead Man, as it releases on February 11th for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC.
Where is the number of the day? Where can it be? 14!
One of the most underrated yet kind of low-key epic video game series is A Plague Tale. I didn't play A Plague Tale Innocence when it was released. Instead, I played it a few years later and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then Requiem came out a couple years later, and I love that one. And now, it seems like we are getting yet another installment in the series with Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy. I'll admit, this game is only this high because of how much I really love the other two games, because we don't actually know a whole lot about it. What we do know is that this game is actually a prequel to the other Plague Tale games, and you play as a completely different character named Sophia. Even though that's basically all we know, I trust the team over at Asobo Studio to make a solid game as they've done before with the other Plague Tale games. I'm looking forward to Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy as it comes out for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, including day one on Game Pass sometime this year. Xbox. Oh, Xbox. They do a bunch of stuff that really makes me scratch my head and kind of frustrates me, as well as I would assume a lot of you. But they do have a pretty solid lineup by the looks of things this year. They got Fable, which I said was number 25, but they also got two other games. There's Forza Horizon 6 and Halo Campaign Evolved, two games I toyed with putting on the list, but decided against it. What about their other pillar, Gears of War? Well, we are also getting Gears of War E-Day. We actually don't know a whole lot about Gears of War E-Day, like at all. We got the one CG trailer a year and a half ago with no real update since. In fact, it's not really even listed anywhere that it's coming out in 2026, so it almost shouldn't count for the list, but Microsoft and Phil Spencer himself have confirmed that we will be getting Gears of War this year. But either way, even though we haven't seen that much really, the trailer we did get seems to be tugging on people's nostalgia. It seems to be the Gears of War perhaps people have wanted. I'm excited to play Gears of War E-Day as it releases for Xbox Series and PC sometime this year.
You win. Alright, that's cool.
Tomb Raider is a series I've always had a soft spot for, but go back and play the original game. I'm not just saying it hasn't held up well, I'm saying it's a bad game to go back and play today. So it desperately needed a remake and, well, Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis is a reimagining. Look, this game is relatively new, news. It's new news. We just found out about this game at the Game Awards, just at the time of recording like a month ago. Not even. We didn't really get a great look at the gameplay. However, despite what I just said about the original Tomb Raider, it is ripe for a remake, or in this case, a reimagining. I think it could very easily lend itself to a new game and could be very solid. And then this, along with 2027's Tomb Raider Catalyst, maybe Tomb Raider is back and better than ever. I'm excited to play Tomb Raider Legacy of Atlantis when it releases sometime this year for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC.
Number 11. Your father will die.
We've been in a bit of a renaissance period for fighting games, but you wouldn't quite know that if you look at the ones we got in 2025. I mean, just look at the Fighting Game of the Year nominees and that should tell you everything. But I'm confident in 2026 for the genre because later this month, 2XKO is finally getting its full release, and it almost made the list, but like I said, I cut it because it's in beta, it's pretty easily accessible. But there is another one coming this year, and it's an IP that I never thought would get a fighting game, and definitely wasn't my first choice of genre for this IP, but I'm still excited for Invincible Versus. Invincible is probably among my top 3 favorite shows on the air right now, or is sort of on the air at least. Like, the season's not currently airing, but it hasn't been concluded yet, so that's kind of what I mean. And I also love fighting games, so this is a match made in heaven for me. Plus, seeing the gameplay, it looks really fun, and visually looks awesome too. It's not quite higher because, as exciting as this game is, I do kind of wish that Invincible's first big game release wasn't a fighting game. I don't know. It just feels like something we should maybe get after they try something else with the IP first. But either way, I'm excited to play Invincible Versus as it releases for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC on April 30th. Invincible isn't the only animated show that I really like that's getting a fighting game this year. And I know before you comment, Invincible was a comic first, but shut up. As there is another one that I'm excited for, and that is Avatar Legends, the fighting game. Now this one, I can say many of the same things as I did for Invincible Versus, which I do. Take most of what I said about that game and apply it to this one. The reason Avatar makes it higher though is because it's probably my favorite show ever, so it gets a boost for that. But either way, after seeing the gameplay and player footage from the alpha with the insane combos people have been pulling off for this game, especially of an Infinite with Katara, like what the fuck? Avatar Legends the fighting game is shaping up to be a banger and possibly, finally, a good Avatar game. If nothing else, it just makes me really happy to put an Avatar game on a list like this. I'm excited to play Avatar Legends, the fighting game, which is a very stupid title, but I can't wait to play it as it releases for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, and at a later date, Switch 2, sometime this year. One indie game I've had my eye on for a while now is a game called Mouse PI for Hire. It's like Doom meets Cuphead, which is just such an interesting premise with the aesthetic of Cuphead, you know, like an old school Disney look, with the gameplay of Doom being more of a boomer shooter. Plus, you play as a mouse, as the name implies, and his name is Jack Pepper. And also, as the name implies, he's a private investigator doing what, private investigators do, you know? Plus, Jack Pepper is being voiced by Troy Baker, who has just been killing it. This is actually the third time in a row I've had Mouse on one of these most anticipated lists, but it's actually set to release this year, and I can't wait. It's not on a lot of people's radar, but I have a good feeling about Mouse, and I think it will be the indie darling of the year. I can't wait to finally play Mouse PI for Hire as it releases for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, Switch, and Switch 2 on March 19th. One thing I never stopped to think about till somewhat recently is how many truly great James Bond games exist. There's a lot of Bond games, sure, but the one you probably think of is GoldenEye 007 for the N64, which, don't get me wrong, has its place in video game history, but it's not quite a pleasant time to go back to and play today. But IO Interactive decided that they'd take a crack at the IP as they are coming out with a new James Bond game with 007 First Light. First off, unrelated, but I really wanted the 007 game to land at number 7 just because of the number 7. But that's not quite how the list came together. But either way, as someone who is not a big fan of the Hitman games, IO Interactive, who, they make the Hitman games, seems like a great pick for Bond, as James Bond is all about being cool and suave and beating up bad guys, but in this case, stealth. So the stealth gameplay that we've seen from 007 First Light looks really cool. Plus, I'm not the biggest fan of Bond, but I know that those who aren't entirely thrilled with the franchise as of late. But I've also heard from those exact same people that this is the Bond they've been waiting for. Plus, Lenny Kravitz as the villain? Alright, I'm here for that. I'm excited to play 007 First Light, as it releases for PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch 2 on May 27th.
36.
Very close, but that's not it. Let's go to Gary the Retard. What number between 2 and 4?
7.
I talked a bit ago about Mouse PI for Hire and saying it has the possibility to be the indie darling of the year. But let's go back to one of the original indie darlings with Super Meat Boy. I love this game. It's a tough-as-nails arcadey platformer where you try to avoid such deadly obstacles and traps and whatnot, and 16 years later, it's transitioning into 3D with Super Meat Boy 3D. This just looks like a lot of frustrating fun. I'm ready to rage with this game. The first game was difficult, sure, but difficult in a way where every time you died, you felt like you fucked up. It felt like you did something wrong. But in a 3D space, oh boy, I'm a little scared to see what type of havoc can be wreaked with that. Not much else to say, really. Just really looking forward to Super Meat Boy 3D as it releases for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series sometime this year. It's labeled as spring though, so I guess expected in spring.
Okay, Mrs. Puff, what's my final score?
6.
Rocksteady. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. It's not their fault, it's WB's fault, but the studio known for revolutionizing the superhero game with the Batman Arkham series, now forced to make live service crap. A fate worse than death. But fear not, because what Rocksteady left behind, a new worthy developer has picked up. Now I would have never thought in a million years that that developer was going to be Traveler's Tales and LEGO, but here we are as we await the release of LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. This really seems like the ultimate Batman game. LEGO or not, surprisingly enough, it seems to be a genuine iteration on what the Arkham games established with its combat. Plus, this game is shaping up to be huge. It's covering basically all of Batman. Batman movies, Batman shows, Batman comics, and even other Batman games. I cannot wait to play LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight as it releases for PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and Switch 2 on May 29th, which if you kept track at all, is only 2 days after 007.
Oh, chills. Literal chills.
It was number 5. Number 5 killed my brother.
Oh my god, I forgot about that part.
Capcom are great. I mean, they actually remember that Mega Man exists, which puts them high up for me. But that's not till 2027, so it doesn't make the list because it can't. However, they are still shaping up to have a solid 2026 with Pragmata, which, like I said, almost made the list, the Mega Man Star Force Legacy Collection, and Onimusha Way of the Sword. It's so cool that Capcom is bringing back a franchise like Onimusha. It was always such a badass franchise with a cool story, world, and combat. But in Way of the Sword, you don't play as Samanosuke, who is, the main character of the games, but as Miyamoto Musashi. So this game changes things up a bit. A lot of these games, I've said something along the lines of, we haven't seen a whole lot yet, but I can't say that about Onimusha because it feels like every opportunity Capcom has to show this game, they will, except for the Game Awards, which was like their most recent opportunity to show it, and they didn't, which was odd to me. But either way, I'm hyped for Onimusha Way of the Sword as it releases for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series sometime this year. I've mentioned 2, kinda mentioned 3, fighting games already. All of them have me super hyped, but if you're still not convinced 2026 will be a banger year for fighting games, how about Arc System Works, the fighting game team, making a 4v4 tag fighter with Marvel characters? That game in question is Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. This was nowhere near my bingo card, but my god, every time we see this game, it looks fucking awesome. I also find it interesting that ArcSys are making these Marvel characters who are American characters and adapting them into more Japanese characters, you know? They said that in like their own commentary videos, and I found that interesting. But seeing the gameplay, so much is happening, but in the best way possible. It does lose points because since they revealed the game, they haven't really shown us much. Like, sure, we've seen the game a few times since, but they never really show us anything new when they do that. And we still only know about the same 8 characters that we did from the jump. So, a little worrying, but hearing what players think after playing the beta, it sounds like this game will be a lot of fun. I'm beyond hyped for Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, as it releases for PC and PS5 sometime this year. I mentioned earlier that when it comes to Nintendo, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is the one upcoming game for Switch 2 that I'm really looking forward to. And I didn't lie, because I said Switch 2 specifically. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream is a Switch 1 game. And no, this isn't a joke, I do have Tomodachi Life at number 3, in a top 20 no less, beating out games like Onimusha, Bond, Tomb Raider, and Control. All games many of you wouldn't even consider putting below this one. But do you think I give a shit? Tomodachi Life on the 3DS legitimately might be my most played game on the 3DS. And I played that thing a lot back in the day. I played that game more than Fire Emblem Awakening, more than Animal Crossing, more than Smash. Okay, I'm not quite sure about that last one. They haven't shown this game too much, but every time they do, it looks like more of the first game. But this is an instance where I do not care. I'm so fucking excited to play Tomodachi Life Living the Dream as releases for Switch 1, although you can play it on Switch 2 in autumn?
What kind of pencil do we take again?
Number 2. Take a number 2.
Looks like you took a big number 2.
Remember a few entries ago when I was talking about Onimusha and I mentioned that Capcom is gearing up to have a stellar 2026 and listed the games they have coming? Well, you may have noticed I didn't mention Resident Evil Requiem, and well, that's because that's my number 2. My god, I love Resident Evil, so any new game in the franchise is gonna shoot up a list like this for me, as long as they don't, like, fuck it up with the first impression, you know? But this one is looking absolutely epic. You play as 2 characters. It seems the main character here is gonna be this newcomer named Grace, and from the story details we've gotten about her, I'm interested to learn more. But then Leon is back, and rumor has it that this may be his final Resident Evil game. But I also love how playing as Grace is gonna be more of like your typical survival horror game, while playing as Leon is gonna be more your typical action horror game. Combining both styles of gameplay that Resident Evil has done just sounds awesome to me. I am absolutely stoked for Resident Evil Requiem as it releases for PC, PS5, Xbox Series, and even Switch 2 on February 27th.
I'm Luigi, number 1.
So let's just keep in mind, Grand Theft Auto 6 is my number 0, meaning it is, by default, my most anticipated game of the year. But like I said at the beginning, including it would almost be like cheating. But even if GTA 6 gets delayed out of the year, we've seen throughout the entire list that we'll be eating just fine. Especially since this year is the year we finally get to play Wolverine. You take my favorite superhero, and who I think is a top 3 best game developers working today, and you get this. A game that felt too good to be true for almost the entire life of the PS5. And sure, we've only gotten the one trailer a few months ago, aside from the original reveal, but from that one trailer, we can see that Wolverine is shaping up to be as epic, fun, action-packed, and violent as it should be. There was a bit of worry that it wasn't going to be too violent, but those worries are gone. There's not much else to say really, because to be fair, we haven't seen much, but I'm still beyond excited to slice up some bad guys as Wolverine when Marvel's Wolverine releases for PS5 sometime this year. So yeah, that is my list. My 20 most anticipated games of 2026. This was hard. In fact, I'm telling you, by the way, this was a top 25, like, very deep into, like, me writing it. I always knew that was a bit too excessive, and I didn't know how to, like, reduce it, but I did it. So, yeah, what do you guys think? Any games I did not include on here? I know there's certain games like Saros. Saros isn't on here. I'll definitely play that game, but it's not a game I'll play at launch. It's, like, the kind of game it is, I'm not a huge fan of. Same with Duskbloods. That one's more of a novelty to me, if anything, really. But yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know some of your most anticipated games in the comments below. You don't have to list me 20 or 25. You can list me at however many you want. Anyways, be sure to like this video, come subscribe, or I will flood your house. Bye!